My name is Richard Bell. I'm a captain here at West Covina Police Department, and on July 1st I'll be sworn in as the interim police chief. I was born in Pasadena, California. Very proud of that. Probably the best high school in Pasadena, which is John Muir High School. I graduated in 1985. I got a scholarship in football. I was a quarterback there in '85. I got a scholarship to the University of Nebraska. It was tough, you know, being a young black man going 2,000 or 3,000 miles away from home to a college where it's predominantly white kids you don't know. The transition was difficult but very necessary. The one thing that I knew I had to do was I could not come back a failure. I had to finish. I ended up getting drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 12th round. Back then they had 12 rounds. And I got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I remember when I got to the team, what you need to understand is in 12 rounds there's 12 guys. We had a party there. And when we got to this party, all 12 draftees were present. And I remember the first rounder getting all the attention, and I was upset because I felt like I got drafted too. And I remember saying to myself, I said, you know what, I'm going to make this team. A 12th rounder today is almost like a free agent. You know, a 12th rounder back then is like a free agent today. So the odds are always against you. First rounders almost always make the team. 12th rounders, you really got to work. Anyway, at the end of the day, that year, I think I was one of 2 12th rounders to make an NFL team, and I was pretty excited about that. I actually only ended up playing for 1 full year. That was with Pittsburgh. My second year, they have this clause in the NFL where they can only protect like 47 out of the 57 guys. That means the other 10 guys are basically free agents. They can stay with the team or they can look for employment elsewhere. We decided to venture out and look for employment elsewhere. I ended up signing a contract with the Kansas City Chiefs, so I left Pittsburgh and joined the Chiefs. During that next year, during camp, I ended up being released from the Kansas City Chiefs. Soon after that, I joined the Barcelona Dragons, which was an affiliate league to the NFL. And during training camp, I severely hurt my ankle and I wasn't able to play that season, and that pretty much ended the career. Well, this is the interesting story. My wife is cousins with Darryl Strawberry. Their grandmothers are sisters. Well, he has a brother by the name of Michael Strawberry who actually worked for LAPD. Now, I've always had a desire to be a police officer, but I never knew how to make that happen. Michael and I ended up going to the same church, so of course dialogue started, and he directed me over to LAPD and said, this is how you get into it. I started that process, and so my first ever contact with law enforcement actually happened with LAPD, where I interviewed, I tested, I did everything well, but there was some issue with my knee that they didn't like, so they disqualified me. I never challenged it, but that didn't stop me. I ended up becoming a reserve officer for the city of Monrovia. A couple of my teammates were already working there, and they said, come on over. So I was doing that on my free time on the weekends. When I finished the Reserve Academy, I actually ended up being the honor cadet. That's kind of like the top guy in the program. I don't know how much significance it had, but I was pretty proud of it. Anyhow, after I finished the reserve program, the chief of San Marino, by the name of Chief Wills, he actually had a guy in that reserve class as well. He saw me there, made an offer for me to come over and test with them. I ignored it for a couple of months, but eventually I tested with San Marino, and I eventually ended up getting hired by them as a full-time police officer. Well, you know, it didn't dawn on me until actually I got there. San Marino had hired a black female. She was there for a long time. Very prosperous there, I should say. She did very well there. When I got there, though, I mean, you can't help notice if you're the only black there. But I found out that I was the first black male ever hired in San Marino, and it's not something I played up on, but I realized that it's pretty significant considering the year was 1996, and I'm just thinking in this day and time, you know, I mean, I don't think you ever get rid of racism or anything like that, but I just figured we're like a melting pot here, you know. You can go to Pasadena and you can see a little bit of everybody there. San Marino is just south of Pasadena, so I'm thinking, you know, every police department should have a good mix of every race there. Just so happened that San Marino didn't. They didn't treat me any different. I didn't feel any different. I just happened to be the first black male ever hired there, and I prospered and had a good time there. Well, the chief of San Marino at the time was Chief Wills, and he actually took the job here in West Covina. And when he got the job, I contemplated whether I should follow him over, and I didn't right away. I waited about a year, and at the end of that year, after he had left, me and another colleague of mine decided that it would be best that we follow him over to West Covina, and so we did. Glad you bring that up. Since I've been here at West Covina, I have been involved with the Explorer program for probably the last 17 years. I mean, I got involved with that right away. And it's kind of neat because you see kids come in with these preconceived ideas about what law enforcement is or is not, and you're able to shape them and really give them a sense of what it's about. And I think some of the things that we teach in the Explorer program, these kids not only can use if they decide to stay with law enforcement, but they can also use outside of law enforcement. So that's kind of like the goal of the program. We don't discriminate. Anybody's welcome. I know here at West Covina, we usually take kids in from 13 till about 20 years old. They can be a part of the Explorer program. They learn a lot of things. What I'd like to see is more of our youth get involved with it. You know, it's free and open to everyone, but for some reason, the young black male is not as interested in law enforcement as some of the other races, and that's concerning to me because the opportunity is there, and to me, it's just based off of decision making. You know, so if we can somehow get the word out to the elementary school kids, you know, at that age, so that they know that this type of program is out there, I think we can get more people involved in it at that age. I was talking with a couple of friends of mine, and we were trying to decide why is it that when we go to these graduations, we're seeing a very low turnout of the young black male. And a lot of times it's because the young black male are getting involved in things at a very young age. Like, for instance, they may get involved with shoplifting or some of these other things, and they're being told that once that happens, you can never be in law enforcement. It's the wrong message to send. I think we need to get to these kids early and let them know that there is still opportunity, but the fact that they're even doing that is concerning to me. So some of these kids are getting in trouble early, and by the time they try to figure it out, by the time they want to get their lives together, they already have a tail on them. They already have this baggage behind them, and it makes it difficult when they're trying to get into this profession. So the goal is to reach these kids young, let them know, hey, decision making is important, even at the age of 11, 12, 13 years old. Those things will follow you. And if we can get their minds right there, then they'll have an opportunity. I understand that law enforcement isn't for everyone, but at least if every kid has an opportunity to make their own mind up, if that's what they want to do, I think they should. And so that's the message we need to get to some of our young people. Well, on next Monday, July 3rd, I'll be sworn in as the interim chief. And, you know, when the announcement was made that that was going to happen, I kind of shrugged it off. To me, I'm doing my job. You know, I've been the acting chief before, so it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. But this is going to be the interim chief, which means that I am the chief of this department until the next chief is sought out. That's a pretty big deal. And I've had a week to think about it, and it seems to be growing. You know, it's pretty significant. Um, there's no secret. Here in West Covina, I'll be the first black chief ever sworn in. But again, to me, it's me doing my job. You know, I've come up through the ranks. Started out as an officer, promoted to corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and now this is just the next step in the evolution. So when I look at it, it's business as usual. You know, we're going to provide the best service for the city of West Covina. That's what we've always been about. But there is a significance to it. I grew up in Pasadena, and I know that there's young kids back there, some of which are being told, you can't do this or you can't do that. Unfortunately, that message gets out. But I'm here to tell you that anybody can do anything that they set their minds to. There was a time where I didn't see myself sitting in this position. But here we are 18 years later, and I'm sitting in this very position. I didn't put any limitations on me. I kept everything open, worked hard, kept my nose clean. Those sort of things are the traits that I used to move forward. And I just want to say to those young people that are out there, you can do whatever you set your mind to, and don't let anybody tell you you can't. Just because I'm the first black chief, to me, that's insignificant compared to the work that I put in to get here. Anybody that works hard can do anything that they want to do, right? There was a time where there wasn't a first black president. There was a time where there wasn't a first anything. You can say that about any profession that you have out there. But the key is you putting in the work, you doing what you need to do to get there. So I encourage all of my young people, and I'm not just talking to blacks. I'm talking to any young person. Decision making is probably the most important thing you can make at a young age. Pay attention to what you're doing, put your nose to the grind, and get it done.